Hello and welcome back to the channel of nonsense and a car that lives rent-free in my head every time I'm asked what the best car in the world is, because usually when I'm asked that question I say something sensible like the Honda Jazz or the Porsche Carrera GT. Other times I mix it up and say the Skoda Superb Estate. Why? Because it's always offered loads of space, decent efficiency at a decent price. At least it used to. This is the all-new version and I've booked it in to find out how it stands up in the year of our Lord 2024, 2025, 2026. I don't know when you're watching this basically, but I drove this back in Portugal in petrol form earlier this year. I've booked it in what I think is the best format, diesel, because I've gone mad. I'm very relevant this year. Let's get on with it. Now, just a bit of pervy preamble for this review. As I said, I drove this back in March in Portugal on the international launch, but driving a car in the UK, I think, is a completely different kettle of badgers. And I only drove the 1.5 petrol out in Portugal and the plug-in hybrid, which is 204 horsepower and can do 62 miles on a charge on electric power alone, which is quite good, and it can fast charge as well. But that 150 horsepower petrol was okay. For me, I think these cars are best with a diesel engine, and here's why. I've driven 500 miles in this car this week. I've been getting about 59 miles per gallon, and I've done 500 miles and I've still got a tank range of 385. So this has got a near 900 mile tank range. That's brilliant. That's ruined my exposure. Thank you, son. But yeah, if you want to go far and carry lots of stuff, I can already recommend this car. Oh, son, you're so inconsistent. But anyway, the Skoda Superb has always been about offering great value. And I think if you accept that nothing is good value anymore, thanks to inflation and flat out capitalist greed, this is still sort of good value. It costs from £35,000, but for that you're getting a hatchback version. And unless you are a taxi driver or you work at the Czech consulate or you're a pervert, you're going to want the estate car, which is about £1,000 more. So this starts at about 37 grand really, and then you're going to want the mid-spec SEL model, which comes packed with kit. That's 39.5 grand. This diesel version is about 42 with a couple of options on it. So yes, I'm going to get criticised for saying a 42 grand car is what we look at as good value these days, but sort of is. Now, I should point out that in my life at the moment, my personal company car thing is an Audi A6 Estate, which is basically a posher version of this. And I've done thousands of miles in that. That car costs 53 grand, which isn't actually much of a stretch when you consider a top spec L&K model of this new Superb is £47,000 before options, which is outrageous. And I don't think it's really worth spending that 47 grand unless you just want the brown leather interior and a few other bits and pieces. But anyway, I'm going to be referring to my Audi A6 through this video just to give this some context, because this is punching upwards and getting more premium, so we might as well talk about Audis. Now, in typical Skoda fashion, you do get quite a lot of kit as standard on mid-spec SEL models. So you get matrix LED headlights as standard. Inside you get ventilated and heated and massage seats, and you get loads of other stuff which I'll show you in a bit. I don't get any of that stuff on my 53 grand Audi, nor do I get this colour, which is slightly divisive. I think it's called iced tea. It looked better in soft winter light in Portugal. Here it is a bit peridot-y greeny. It looks like, you know, one of those 1980s bathroom suites that your nan had. But I quite like it. It is different, which should be celebrated. Now, this paint's 660 quid. If you don't want to spend any money on paint, you've got a choice of white, boring, or quite a nice blue. I'm glad that Skoda has given us something that isn't just white as a free colour. But yeah, I think it looks quite sharp. Lots of my neighbours have actually commented on this car saying how posh it looks. And they don't normally comment on cars that I have outside my house. Not even my Audi. Well, no one cares about an Audi, do they? You can tell it's a big car because I can get you a proper wide angle shot because I'm in the back seat. And I'm so far away from the front of the car. But anyway, in every version of the Superb, including entry-level SE technology models, you get a digital dashboard and a big 13-inch infotainment screen. You also get heated seats, which massage you in every single model as well, which is just quite impressive. But yeah, this infotainment system, let's start there. It is the now, I guess, pretty standard Volkswagen Group 13-incher. It's got wireless Apple CarPlay, it's got Android Auto. I really like it, it's just easy to use. And as we'll find out in a second, you've got some special knobs for your climate control. Digital dashboard, meanwhile, is just a standard job that kind of shows you maps, it shows you your driving data, it shows you how out of focus your camera is. Come on, There you go, and you can see that I've done 481 miles at just over 58 mpg there. 2-spoke steering wheel. This one has got a heated steering wheel because this car has the winter pack, which also has a heated windscreen, ooh, and heated rear seats. Now, in terms of other stuff, you've got a wireless phone charger down there, which is 15 watts. It's fast, it's ventilated, it's got USB-C or 2 next to it as well. Got some cup holders there. Excuse my detritus, I have been living with this car. Also got a full-size glove box and felt-lined door bins, which are very big as well. Now, you don't have a sunglasses holder, which is a bit of a shame, but you do have a big box under here with some stuff in it. That goes really far down, and you've got this little block here, which is kind of felty, suedey. Maybe it's made of Alcantara, and you can use that to clean the screen as well. Now, that is a bit of a shame, because that then means that you can't adjust this to be a comfortable armrest at a different angle when you're driving along. But that is really one of the only ergonomic foibles with this cabin. It's just really handy. And to disable the speed limit warning when you're driving along, you just press that button there above the silver knob and then click in to one option on the digital dashboard while you're driving, which you have to do every time you start the car because modern Euro NCAP bollocks. But anyway, you also get a frameless rear view mirror as my hand, which looks quite posh. But the star of the show for me, and the new Passat, which is based on this car, doesn't get these. So yeah, you've got proper knobs, and you can tap them in, and then it's like, oh, I can adjust my heated seat. Oh, I can adjust my ventilated seat. These are really good, and this middle one adjusts, you know, what the fan's doing, where they're going, and then volume as well. You can also use that to adjust the map zoom and your driving modes if you've got the optional adaptive dampers. But yeah, I love all that. It's not gimmicky, it works really well, and the cabin is just a delight to use. Now, the Superb's always been a long car. This version has got a fair bit longer as well. It's just under 5 meters long, so it's the same size roughly as a BMW 5 Series Estate. But the other reason I love this car is because it's got a massive boot. It's got one of the biggest boots on sale. It is comically large, and I think actually bigger than almost every other normal car you can buy. 690 litres. It's 30 litres bigger than the old Superb. It is vast, it is boxy, it is useful. It's way bigger than the one in my A6. That's only got 565 litres. That only just about coped with a family camping trip to France. This would have laughed at my massive tent that I was pitching. But I'm pitching a different sort of tent now. Very big, very useful. We've got levers to fold seats down. This one's got a tow bar. I'll talk about that in a second. You've got a 12-volt socket. And if I was to get in it like an absolute knob, look at that. I could actually sleep in this without putting the rear seats down. Admittedly, I'd be in a fetal position. But anyway, love the boot. I love its towing capacity is pretty good as well. I don't love the towing capacity. That'd be a weird thing to say. But it can tow up to 2.2 tons if you get the more expensive 193 horsepower diesel, which has 4-wheel drive. This front-wheel drive 150 horsepower diesel can only tow 2 tons on a brake trailer, but still quite good, I think. The tow bar's about 1,100 quid, and again, it's only a semi, so you have to give it a hoof to flop it away. But yeah, that is bigger than a Mercedes E-Class Estate, which is one of the other big estate cars, and obviously that's loads more money. Also like that it's got the same thing as my Audi. This parcel shelf automatically closes when you close the electric boot. And I think it looks quite smart from behind as well, with these new slightly tinted lights. Got a rear wiper as well. Very practical. Porsche would charge you for that. Now the third reason, or is it fourth or fifth or millionth reason I love the Skoda Superb is how much rear seat space you get. Look at this, I'm 6'3". That's my driving position. I could fit at least 2 fully grown ferrets behind each of my kneecaps or in front of them. I've got some storage down there for maps and high-vis vests and things like that. I've got felt-lined door bins so things don't rattle around. I've got room to store another half of one of my heads up here. There is a big transmission tunnel, so your middle seat passenger is not going to have loads of footroom, but I've got heated rear seats in this one. 2 USB-Cs, the doors open really wide, so getting a child seat in is good. Now, my 3.5-year-old can kick the back of the seat, so no car is impervious to the menacing little paws of tiny little girls. But yeah, I've got a centre armrest here with cup holders and a tablet holder as well, so your kids can watch an iPad, although I'm not sure it's really quite far enough forward if they're in a child seat. But whatever, it is lovely back here. There's a nice angle on the seat, even though it doesn't adjust or anything like that. It is proper comfy. Oh, I should point out that you can spec this car with little things that flip out of the headrests, so you can rest your head against them and properly fall asleep, like those kind of bendy bits on a BA headrest. That's kind of Making me sound a bit posh, isn't it? But yeah, and that also comes with a blanket and blinds for the back window. Isn't that quite cute? So you've got a little snug travel pack. It's £660 or something like that though. Maybe worth it. Right, I just ate a blackberry off a bush. Now my mum always told me to eat high ones so dogs haven't weed on them, but that's right next to a cow field, so a cow's probably licked the one that I've just eaten. So if I die halfway through this driving segment, you'll know why. But anyway, it's got keyless entry, it's got keyless go on all models, I think. And then you put it into gear using the twisty knob up here. They move the gear lever up behind the steering wheel, so you've got more space down here for things like chewing gum that's going to rattle, and sunglasses, which will rattle while you're filming, which is very professional of me. Now, I've got an electrically adjustable seat here. It goes up and down. It's got massage. As I've said, it's really good. It's really comfortable. But when you drive this, it doesn't actually feel half as intimidating as you might think, considering it's so long. You get front and rear parking sensors on all models, which is helpful, but you want an SEL because you get a reversing camera, and then there's the option of a 360 camera, which I might actually go for driving this. I'm a pretty confident parker, but it is helpful in a 5 meter long car, having that sort of stuff. I've also got head-up display, which is an option in this car as well. And it's really nice having that. It makes you really think you're in something posh, premium, and pulling up slowly behind a man who won't ever step out of the road even slightly because he's a miserable old... Anyway, right, how does it drive? Well, the 150 diesel engine is a diesel engine. It is reasonably brisk, it is torquey. Obviously, it sounds like a diesel engine. So I know I've been banging on about how diesels are great, but sounds a bit like a diesel engine. It is reasonably hushed, to be fair, even when you're giving it death. Now, it's not particularly fast. It's about 9 seconds to 60. I don't know about you, but I don't drag race family cars because I'm not a desperate man who just wants attention on the internet. Or am I actually? Maybe I am. You can get a fast version of this though if you spend 47 grand and get the L&K or Lauren and Clement model. You can get the 2-litre petrol with 265 horsepower four-wheel drive. That'll do 0 to 62 in 5.6 seconds. And yes, when it's out of warranty, you can tune it up very easily to about 400 horsepower without doing too much to it. In fact, Skoda UK has just made the previous generation Superb estate with 480 horsepower or something. I'm going to get that on the channel, hopefully this year, and we'll talk about a 500 horsepower Skoda Superb and see what that feels like. But this feels pretty good to drive. Now, I've back-to-back this with my Audi A6, the thing that I've been running for a couple of months. That rides better than almost any other car I've driven because it's not an S-Line, it's got small 18-inch wheels, it's got big fat tyres, and it just obliterates bumps like cars just don't do anymore. This is a bit more brittle. It's a little bit firmer, the ride over bumpy roads, but it's definitely not enough to get on your nerves, and in isolation, you would think this is great, and it rides noticeably better than the new Skoda Kodiaq because SUVs just ride worse. It's the way they're built. This weighs about 1.7 tons, so it's not too heavy, but it's not a complete featherweight either. And that weight, when you get the four-wheel drive one, gives it a reasonably decent towing capacity. But yeah, I like driving this. It's just very easy. The visibility out is very good, even out the back, even though the rear window might as well be through a TARDIS into another interdimensional portal, but it's big in the rearview mirror, so you can see what's behind you. But yeah, it's not a sports car. That's not going to surprise you, is it? When you get onto a twisty road, it rolls a bit, but it grips and it goes exactly where you want it to. The steering is accurate. It's very Skoda-y. It's not going to give you the same kind of cornering excitement as an Octavia VRS, which is pretty mild as well, to be fair. But it's just a not annoying car to drive on a B road or on a motorway. On a motorway, it's pretty refined as well. Having been up to Derby and back in this last week, which was about a 350-mile round trip, I got out of this feeling as if I'd done it about 50 miles, really. The lane assist is a little bit aggressive, and you can turn it off using the button on the steering wheel, which also turns off the speed limit warning. The only real annoyance I found is that, like all Volkswagen Group big cars, the cross-traffic assist thing, which is when you're reversing, it's watching each side for cars and pulling out new car parks and things like that, that will do a reverse emergency stop at the drop of a hat. I was reversing through a car park the other day. A guy was walking behind me who I had seen. He was quite far behind me. I was on the brakes, and this just slammed the anchors on, going backwards, which was a really unpleasant experience. It's about as much fun as sticking bananas that are on fire up your bum. And then it makes you a bit nervous whenever you reverse it. It's like, oh, it's beeping. Is it going to slam that? Oh, yeah, it's done that. Well, that, or whatever way it would go. But that's really about it. The other niggles, there aren't any. The aircon vents. The knob on this one turns slightly past 12 o'clock when you turn it off. I don't know. It's got a little 12 o'clock mark on it, which goes to like 11 o'clock when you turn the vent off. But yeah, I like it in here. It's a little bit plasticky if you start doing that. But I think the perceived quality is great. It's just a really easygoing car. But because it's got Skoda's latest infotainment system and everything else, it just feels really modern and really premium, and these knobs help that as well. Yes, they're a little bit wobbly and plasticky if you wiggle them about, but hey, I don't care. I've got ventilated seats in what could be, but isn't, a 39.5 grand Skoda. Yeah, in many ways I do prefer it to my Audi A6, just not in terms of ride comfort, and refinement in the Audi is a bit better, but you'd expect that because that car cost 53 grand when it was new. It only cost me 29 because it's a year old and it loses value like anything, but whatever. Oh, let's talk about the sound system as well. This car's got the standard one. And if you go back kind of 12, 13 years when Skoda really started getting its act together and making some of the best cars in the Volkswagen Group, the sound systems were always a bit pants. This one hasn't even got the upgraded Canton system, I don't think. And it's really quite decent. At 80 miles an hour on a motorway, it's thumping and it's enjoyable. I imagine the Canton system really just adds a subwoofer and a bit more power, but I don't think you need it, which is odd, because normally in a Skoda, you do. Oh yes, I think I've mentioned this. You can option this with adaptive dampers, and that gives you driving modes, which you access through this middle button down here. If you don't spec the optional adaptive dampers, you don't get driving modes, I don't think, as far as I can tell anyway. I think it's the same in the Kodiaq as well. I quite like that, because that's Skoda's way of saying driving modes are a bit pointless unless they alter the suspension comfort. Otherwise it's just throttle mapping and all that kind of nonsense. So it's a waste of time. But yeah, if you do option the suspension, you can then change between driving modes, so you can have soft, firm and all that good stuff as well. But yeah, the throttle mapping in this is actually a lot sharper than in my Audi as well. So this feels faster than my Audi, despite the fact my Audi's got 204 horsepower diesel. This is 150. But whatever. Waffle, waffle, waffle. I think it's conclusion time, isn't it, when I'm talking about throttle mapping the Skoda Superb. Oh yes, the Skoda Superb is much like a GT3 RS. So having lived with the new Skoda Superb for 500 miles and a week in the UK, do I still love it? Yes, I do. Yes, I do very much. If you're after an estate car with a big boot, this is essentially the best you can get at almost any price point for the boot space. But it's also a very good car that you get attached to the boot as well. I love the rear seat space, I love the interior tech. The only real niggles are things like the ride isn't quite as comfortable as on my much more expensive Audi A6. But whatever, it's bearable, it's totally fine. It's only when you back to back them that you notice it. The engine lineup is strong, and I think if you look at the competition for this new Superb, it's things like the new Passat, which is essentially the same car as this underneath, but you can't get that as a hatchback, whereas you can with this. And for some reason in the UK, with the Passat, you can't get a diesel option, which just kills it dead in the water for me. I don't know why they've done that. You can only get that as a petrol or a plug-in hybrid petrol. The diesel in this makes so much sense. If you like driving far and carrying loads of stuff, this is absolutely killer as a family car, which is why I'm giving it 10 Tim Roadies out of 10. That makes it sound like it's perfect. It's not completely perfect, but it's as close as any other estate car has ever come. I love it. I just wish, like everything else, it was cheaper. But then I could say that about every single car. There'll be people in the comments saying, I'm not going to spend 42 grand on a Superb. I'm going to keep my £700 Honda Jazz. Well, were you in the market for one? I don't know. Whatever. I'm waffling. If you want a big estate car, just go and make love to one of these. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, please do hit like. Massively helps me out when I'm doing this. Standing in lay-bys on weekends, filming and stuff like that. It really just boosts my morale. Subscribe to the channel as well, because I want to get 30,000 subscribers as soon as I can, because that gives me all sorts of ego trips that I can't get through massive consumption of Haribo Tang Fastics. And go down to the comments and leave me the check word for you knob. See you next time. I really attractively blew snot out of my nose when I did that. Great. Hopefully my camera didn't pick that up. Or maybe it's the same colour as the car.